Now, this is it, Jacob.
Definitely is. I got just as excited with Naku over on EU. You know, even though I am Jacob PR, I got a little Spain in me as well. So that's one of the brothers over on EU that I kind of root for. And already you're seeing a little bit of a struggle, but it is going to be a trade. Srapped is going to be the first one that goes down. The bait and switch. Maybank goes and takes charge, and Naku and Maybank go ahead and win the first exchange of our finals lobbies.
Huge way to start off the momentum. But look, the good news for Scram, as we talked about it, there's 5 different lobbies going on. Normally, in a set one lobby format, they'd have to wait the whole match to play game 2, but now they can just queue on up again. All the other players that maybe it didn't go their way in the early game will get into the same match, and they can get right back into the action. So you kind of can keep that momentum going, but hopefully you want it to be positive momentum and not momentum of losing the early game.
Yeah, and this, you're exactly seeing the double-edged sword of these style of lobbies. One team contested, one team uncontested over towards Classic Courts. And there was a ton of loot over on that side of the map, so uncontested is truly going to be a blessing. But let's talk about the entrance of our POI. Snooty Steps. You go ahead and get access to that mythic hammer pump. You get access to the medallion as well, which grants you shields up to 50 as long as you don't have any. Similar effect towards the mini. As Axe Force is already down, Roban trying to go ahead and make up for lost time. And the tricky thing for him, a little bit of a blessing and a curse, is because there's so many NPCs nearby, they may not exactly know where he's positioned at.
You can see how many duos were in the surrounding area as well, making it even that much more difficult to make your decisions early on. But for Marco and Vision here, they've decided to quickly keep on rotating through, continuing with their loot path. What's crucial in these higher tier lobbies is having that early game planned out, having your loot path planned out, and the rotations depending on your opponents. But when you're in 5 different lobbies, you don't know exactly which opponents you're going to be facing against, so you can't calculate as much.
Yeah, looking at the drop spot, you've seen some of these POIs having as much as 5 different players, but Snowy's goes down. Great effort trying to break into the box, but it's just not enough. A trade, and things turn on its side just like that. He's owes and gets a big double elimination. Persians coming up big, saving the day for him and Snowy. And that's the thing as well. We talk about so many different teams being able to potentially contest these POIs. It is so hard to prepare for one team, let alone the potential for 5 different teams. And that's exactly how things will play out.
Things shaking up at Reckless Railways. Gotta be careful there as we switch on over. Fan favorites, MrSavage Mongraal, who look to have a pretty peaceful start here. No elims to their name, but a lot of time to fish around. We saw, like Cammy and Seti, you can use those shield breaker EMPs to loot or fish more efficiently, sorry. But switching back over to iDrop here alongside Nebs, got themselves into an engagement. The good news is they did get that first elimination, gives them that player advantage, 2 versus 1. But you can see Moneymaker putting on his boxing gloves, might be ready for that third party soon.
Yeah, I think he's just trying to look for some heals, so that way he could make that trek over towards the southern portion where they are fighting at. But that is going to be the blessing, is the fact that he was so weak to begin with. He doesn't have the same flexibility as he normally would. Nebs and iDrop able to win the exchange for now. It's not over just yet, as Luis looks like he's just trying to hide, bypass, because his zone will push them out eventually. Seti and Cammy, the split drop, but there's so much action going around. Seti's going to be the first one knocked. That's Nova who gets credit for that one, and that is a big elimination early. You heard both Mini Miner and Levin kind of talk about the success they've already been finding for a possible 3rd consecutive year. And for them, I wouldn't be too worried with them going down early, because I feel like Cammy, with the success he's had and the experience he's able to gain over the last couple of years, it's not too much of a worry, but it does put at least a little bit of a tweak in their game plan.
Look, it might mess up the momentum a bit, but like you said, they're veterans. They know how to handle these situations. They've been in these situations countless times. But you know, you gotta say, Cammy's gotta be feeling a bit nervous, crouched up in a corner here. You never really know what your opponent might be thinking. Good news is we have the pros of seeing that mini-map with the opponents on it, so we can see that they have disengaged, and Cammy now has a bit more flexibility. But the question is, how long is he going to be staying here as the zone closes in, next zone appears, the surrounding area gets smaller and smaller, and the opponents get closer and closer.
And this is what happens in these style of lobbies. I think a lot of players feel a different amount of confidence than they normally would. You tune into Eclipse and Dexy getting another elimination on the Wolvex. His teammate long gone. You got to imagine that might be him on the mini-map on the outskirts towards the west side. Just trying to find some loot. Have plenty of time in this game trying to backtrack for that reboot card. As long as Eclipse and Dexy choose not to camp it, but a nice snipe like that's going to give them confidence to continue to push on over. But not just yet in their plan. That team is going to be able to disengage, keep their game going. For Eclipse and Dexy, at least that's something for their surge.
We can see what happened here with Cammy, as it looks like it might... Oh,
no way.
No way. I thought it was over. I thought it was over. They jumped over Cammy. They used him like a little stepping stone to get over the ridge, and they still didn't see him, Jacob.
I just imagine Seti in his ear, don't be suspicious, don't be suspicious, as Cammy just narrowly escapes. And those are the moments right there, though. Sometimes it's a big impact moment, you get elimination, a huge refresh. Well, it's that moment right there. If Cammy and Seti could come back, we'll say, hey, it was because he hid just like a rock between a mountain, any crevice you can hang on to. He found some success. His eye drop and Nebs rotating around the map. And you can see, I think they have their lines of sight towards the right side of the overall map, where there's less people actually contesting it, plus there's static launch pads to give you that mobility.
All about making use of that natural environmental mobility, launch pads, rifts, you've got it all, but right now mobility isn't a key factor for iDrop here, as he's forced into a situation where he does not have the advantage. He has to make something happen to come out on top. He does have the positional one, but with the 1 versus 2, it makes it that much more difficult. As he tries to make a disengagement here, drops down below to the dirt, close to the water, but is he going to be able to make it? How hungry is his prey right now?
Looks like he's just kind of getting pushed around a little bit from everybody else, not really having the flexibility to choose what he wants to do. And they actually do see him trying to heal up, so they got to know that he is weak. So now they're on the chase, especially with the grapple blade. They're going to be able to cover distance rather quickly, and the cut back from iDrop trying to catch him off guard. And this is his best chance. Try to separate both of these players into 2 separate 1v1s, but the damage is just insurmountable. Too much for iDrop to overcome. He's going to go down and get sent back to the lobby for another game to queue up.
Only so much you can do, but the non-stop action continues as Cammy now. He was camouflaged into the rock, but looks like when he's in the water, he can't turn into a fish, as now they found him. The hunt continues, another chase. Good news, has the grapple blade, has that mobility to try and escape, but so does his opponents as they continue to hunt Cammy down. How long will this go on for? Being out of the zone, delaying as much as possible as Cammy gets cracked, and now that is ultimately going to become his fate.
Honestly, Takata, that doesn't worry me too much. You know, Cammy and Seti, they've had slow starts before and still have been able to burst up the leaderboard in no time. But we'll see. We'll see how the day goes on, because a different format, different set of skills is going to be required overall, as Creox just seems to be under siege down low, even explosions popping off. Needs a little help there to kind of finish that one off. Even QB taking some shots from the high ground. And this is what happens when you don't or aren't able to really pinpoint your opponent's location right out of the gate. They get that early advantage in terms of damage. I just want to see them end this fight rather quickly and not let these eliminations escape through their hands.
The 2 versus 2, good news is there's not too many opponents close by, so it should be a fair fight for the time being. The question is, like you said, how long will they continue to take these shots before making more of an aggressive play? As it looks like Chekeni, Ryuga, they might want to just disengage. They have the grapple blades. They don't want to take any risks. They did have the HP and shield advantage, had their opponents boxed down below. Feeling a bit scared, but you know, you don't want to take these risks if they're unnecessary, as now they continue to climb up the snowy mountain and can look around and kind of see how their opponents have been rotating and what options they might have even for a bit more tags. But back to MrSavage, Mongraal, looks like they got a cash. Still no elims to their name, wondering how much damage they might have at this point. They have crossed quite a few duos that looks like they're already on their surge path, up above on ridges, mountains, hills, anywhere that gives them a good line of sight to their opponents. But for Mongraal and Savage, they're just going to keep rotating through.
It's interesting to see their loadout, that they're not really carrying any mobility. As we jump into another fight, Zardox is going to go down. But even the team right before our very eyes, Shady and Krayer, they have their grapple blades. That's something we've seen almost all season long, whether you're using your Flowberry Fizz rotates, you mix it with a grappled launch pad or a crash pad. There's at least something in your inventory that allows you to close or create distance rather quickly. So interested to see how some of these teams in general will perform without it. And you're seeing so many different variations, even Uguay choosing to grab the grapple blade, mix it in with a sniper. And I think even with the nerfs to the sniper, in the right person's hands, it still packs a punch and can change a game plan in a moment's notice.
I mean, when you have that one shot to the head, even with the new change in bullet drop, travel time, these players, they're veterans. They're elite in Fortnite competitive. They spend the time practicing to hit those shots, and all it takes is that one headshot to give you a huge advantage, the upper hand in the engagement. As we switch over to Fistroki Hydro now, looking like they want a little bit of that action, that chaos, as they continue to take pop shots.
Polish Jeff with his position. They're almost like in a square split. Got to be careful for all angles. Ooh. He's going to try to break into the box. Fastroki was on the tail end of that one, but luckily for him, he's narrowly able to escape and create some distance. Hydro's there to reunite. And that's what's going to be important. Have to be able to play defensively. Jeff almost taking first wall. Cone's there. The fire is going to be shot back, but Jeff goes down and up out at the same time to take down his opponents. And that's the most important thing with the fight. It's changing directions, changing these different elevations so your opponent doesn't know exactly where you're coming from. And that was played absolutely perfect.
Polish Jeff with that confidence, too. You saw it. I mean, Hydro and Stroker were taking some pop shots, were playing slow, but Jeff did not care. Went straight in. Played for that aggression. As now mid-map objective showing up here. Island has appeared. Snowy now looking to get on up. As Artist and Hootie, though, are close by, taking shots. Huge connections from Artist here, but not enough to play aggressive, but it is enough to hopefully start capturing the flag and maintain the box up here.
Yep. And you can see they're going to be the first team to actually go for Loot Island. Everybody else right now, if it's in your mind to not try to contest that, you need to make that conscientious decision rather quickly, because 4th zone, 5th zone, when Rift Island has the chance to be inside, the next couple will force Rift Island outside of the zone, whether if it's a far pull on the 50-50 or a short pull centering up. These teams need to start making that conscientious decision around their positioning and where they're actually going to land here in the zone. Some may have a little bit more flexibility than others, as Gripey outside of zone for now. Does have 2 med kits, so he's gonna have an opportunity to make it in, but with 2 different teams acting like gatekeepers, how far he's gonna make it in is a whole different question.
Difficulty levels increasing here as this rotate continues, but taking a back look at Vico, Pink, taking out Kylie here. This is how Gripey lost his duo partner. And look at this, Jacob. The action might be starting. All it takes is one shot from the Reaper. Send his opponents to the Shadow Realm. Does not connect. As now, you can see the quick decision to just continue rotating when you have this sniper rifle in hand. If you're unable to connect that first shot, it's not worth it to make a full engagement from the scenario without even a tag. And you can see how quickly they change their mind, as now they just continue farming on up, rotating. Only 6 shots as well in the chamber for MrSavage. But they're relaxed. You know, they're just rotating, doing their thing, not stressed yet.
It's like you could see their experience in real time. You know, you can easily try to go ahead and play aggressive, W key, especially in a lobby style just like this, but they know exactly which fights they want to take and which ones they don't. As we tune back into Vico and Pink, they found that elimination onto Gripey, so they get sent back to the lobby. So their game here in this first one has come to an end, but luckily they can queue right back on up and continue things off. But this is how they were able to get the elimination, the multiple angles. Pink down low, Vico coming from the top, and they just sandwich him and eat him up.
The 2-on-1 is always difficult. Now 4 elims for Vico and Pink, so they're feeling pretty good getting here into the later half of the mid-game. Meanwhile, active Pixel, the duel, going straight into the engagement here, cracking their opponent, leaving them very low, but you gotta be careful of your surroundings. Aim is not a missing factor for the enemies around them, as now they're forced to take a step back, heal up, get the shield back. No medallion to them, so they do have to use the minis, the bigs, which isn't infinite. Like if they were to have the medallion like Zane here, you can see healing up to 50. They can just drop it back and forth between each other, depending on who needs shield, who doesn't. As now, what a loadout as well. Mythic, Striker AR, Grapple Blade, Sniper, Medallion. I mean, that's the position you want to be in.
Yeah, the only thing that's kind of missing now between the duo is some HP to kind of regain. One of them actually needs it, the other one not so much, but you can see everybody kind of getting jam-packed closer and closer together, and this is the stage of the game to where everybody is forced to be in close proximity with one another, so those exchanges that you were freely able to take early on in the game are not as safe as they once were. So being able to peek through the cone like CZB and Nathan are currently doing, getting some information of where everybody's going to be before the next zone pulls all the way towards the western side of the map in the first 50-50 of the day.
Now the duo's planning out. What's that decision? What's that rotate going to look like? You can see at the bottom right, a lot of them choosing to go up north, hoping to not find as many duos looking back at them who have already been placed inside of the zone. For Strand and Kovacs, though, they were fortunate enough to pull that zone, as now they have the freedom to look around at the duos rotating in, take some shots, do some damage.
And I ask you a question real quick. The zone's on the 50-50 right now. Obviously, that Eastern Tide is going to get stacked. Does Takada move over when the zone opens up? Like, what situation makes you go for that space versus not going for the space?
Look, if you're comfortable on loot, if you're comfortable on damage, and you don't want to hold these people on the edge, you can play for that full position. If you have the materials to possibly take an advantageous position on the moving zones, you can go early. But for a lot of people who've already built up their boxes, who don't want to use more materials to rotate, they just have the freedom to stay here, take those shots, do the damage. And it's all depending on the situation they were in beforehand and the playstyle they want to continue with. But when you don't have options, and your duos like Artists, like Cutie here, who are going to make use of this crash pad, rotate, possibly combining the Flowberry. We talked about it. Mini talked about it. Unfortunately, though, their idea has been shot down, literally. No more crash pad left. Have to use a second one now, as their opponents keep taking shots at it. You gotta be cautious.
That's the thing, man. You can think outside of the box all you want, but if your crash pad is also outside of that box, that is what's going to happen 10 times out of 10. It just goes to show how aware everybody is in this lobby and how much they're learning with each and every one of these new techniques that do come out. So, I mean, great wherewithal for them to learn it, but even better for the lobby to kind of spot that one out and shut it down before it started, as Sky Move able to find a huge impact elimination there on a player separated from his duo, because him being a solo, those materials, all that resources is so crucial for the rest of this game.
Back on Mongraal and MrSavage now. Already positioned themselves in zone, still have a good amount of consumables, good amount of materials. I love that they're positioned here on the ridge as well, on the mountain, so they are elevated compared to a majority of the other duos who are rotating on under the train tracks. And it gives them that advantage if the zone does start pulling more towards the east. As now reinforcements come through, they've got a lot of space to work with.
This might be too soon to tell, but I see the zone right now going over towards the train tracks. We might have our first FNCS victory train lap Somebody's able to come out on top, and that's one of the things you really just have to be conscientious of a lot of these changes, because if you're in that zone, especially towards moving zones, and you're trying to build and the train comes crashing through and you're not prepared with elevation or at least a plan B, that's when everything is going to come crumbling sideways. As you see in the elimination feed, Polish Asian Jeff gets taken down. Unfortunate, especially with how good of a move he just pulled, but you're seeing just a couple of teams over on this side of zone. Elevation's already been found by Cringe and Noms. Some of the most elevation in the lobby. There might be a few teams around that have just a little bit more.
Train, you can see, is going through the tracks right now. Hopefully not going to run into any of the opponents here that were built up on the train tracks. I'd hope they would have made that decision beforehand. As now K's, though, in the chaos. Bullets coming in from all the duos that are already based up. But Nova and his duo partner will pick up that knock, will refresh all that loot that they were missing, but fortunately enough, they aren't missing too much at all. Have the 3 medkits, have the shields, have the full materials, as now zone has appeared. 8th zone, southwest side of the map here. Good news for a majority of the duos down south, but the few that were up north, you can see now deciding if they rotate on that dead side to just go through the pile of players who are stacked up on the east.
Yeah, you talked about that west side being the slower side. There's one duo that's just taking that opportunity in stride, rotating all the way around. Nobody even really looking in their direction throughout the majority of this rotate. Finally, Nova and Phalix are going to get the memo, begin to rotate themselves, but 93 above the damage threshold. They don't have to worry about Surge for now, but it's something that will be looming in the back of their mind until a couple more players can go down. But with high ground that isn't so high for now, Uguay and TJ, they're able to get the first knock on a couple of players trying to rotate in towards zone, and that is what happens when you beat everybody to the punch. You have the luxury of looking back and just lighting up the playing field.
Already 8 elims for that duo, but a duo that was looking so bright now. The light has darkened as Pink is left alone. Vico with his 4 elims taken out. Good news, using that Flowberry Fizz to get that mobility boost. Rotate on to the less congested side of the zone, and it even pulled towards Pink here. It's huge zone-wise, but after getting cracked now, he wants to move positions, doesn't want to get pushed by that duo. Big Shield comes through, has a med kit, has the Flowberry. Pink should be able to last a good amount of time here.
Yeah, great decision to slide down the mountain away from the zone. But what that did is moved him closer to other players, so he wasn't going to be the focus. Because you know as well as I do, if you see one person tagging up a solo, you're just going to join the fray, even if you don't get the elimination. So Pink really thinking outside of the box, but high ground continues to be maintained by Uguay and TJ, as they're just looking back to the side of zone, trying to tag anybody up before they make a chance to get there. But Mongraal and Savage, they've been scathing by a smooth and simple game, but they could be waiting for moments like this. Almost max mats for Mongraal alone.
Huge amount of materials, low amount of damage. Good news is that shouldn't be a difficulty for this duo. Now, on the side of the zone where all these other players are rotating through, opening up the floor to find those options, to find those tags, get that damage. Unfortunately enough, or fortunately enough, actually, they go up to 16 above, but how long are they going to be able to hold that? High ground has been taken. Marco, Fire Bro, now up above in the clouds, looking down below, connecting to those structures, making sure they can keep this elevated position. No Flowberry Fizz, no Grapple Blade, though, so they can't go too high. Only 6 builds to work with as well as they scabber through.
Kind of called out their worst case scenario. No mobility, no way to really catch themselves, especially with the amount of elevation they have. But we move into our top 20. Cringe here as a solo. He lost Noms across the way, but Pink goes down as well, joins him back into the lobby. They're going to quickly try to queue up for another game as Mongraal and MrSavage. A bit quiet when it comes to eliminations, but this is the moment they could have a chance to pop off, quickly staying towards the front side of the zone, above everybody else, which gives them opportunities to peek down, but Savage gets ahead of himself momentarily. Luckily, he's able to get bailed out by Mongraal.
Huge refresh, recuperating materials, such a good amount. They could start looking up a little bit. They don't know that the high ground is low on mats, but if they start taking pot shots, see they're in wood, it could open up that opportunity to take height, as Uguay, on the contrary, taking down the ground. Now, 4 elims to his name, duo partner with 3. High ground, trying to scavenge everything they can, manage up top. Nobody is taking shots at them. Nobody is contesting them. They have freedom right now, but for how long? 3 builds to work with. Drop below, now crucial, in need of a refresh.
Yeah, this is where Firehunter has to go big. Marco actually did go down right next to him. This is not a good look. And now he's stuck by himself. No builds, no real opportunity. He's going to have to make something out of nothing here. And you see the thought process in action, staggering himself out of zone. Uguay and TJ go down, but Mongraal and Savage, with the mats that they've had and held on to for so long, they finally take the high ground, and at the perfect moment, too.
This is what they needed. They've used the materials to get up above, but they have it. They have height. They have the heal up with the floppers. They just need to get a bit more eliminations. I mean, 0 elims to the name. You know they want that combination of placement, as Phalix now trying to play the heal off. It's so dominant in this current meta, using these med kits to stay up in zone. Give your time to think a little bit, figure out the next move, as Savage now has decided it's elim time. It's time to pick up these eliminations. 3 already to his name in an instant as he continues back above.
Yeah, big pickup on those Siphon mats. Reunites with Mongraal as well at the top of the mountain. Everybody else down low in the mud, struggling to make it through. Kuriyama's going to go down. Phalix still being able to hold on strong. Ivalsik is able to pop that first of 2 med kits, but time is running down. Final 5 teams left alive, with a couple more being dropped off towards the backside of the zone. Debule trying to reunite and hold on for his teammates, but another player is going to be dropped off. MrSavage and Mongraal, the return of Mongraal himself in his debut match in our FNCS Week 1 finals, leaves it to Savage towards the backside of zone, going for the heal off, but will he even need it? Yes, he will. Mongraal's not able to connect, but this one is done and dusted. Not enough heals as MrSavage wins this one by a mile.